Hey everyone, welcome to the Friday edition of hashtag Malkin Live. Just a reminder off the top to make sure to watch Sovereign Nation, my new show on Newsmax, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, there's my plug-a-palooza for you. It re-airs at 11 a.m. on Sunday. And you can just follow me on Twitter while I'm still on it for alerts about any other appearances. But I'm so glad to join you. It's been a while. It's been a super busy week and a half, but I have a fantastic guest, and without further delay, I'm going to bring him in. It is Chris Farrell. Hello, Chris. It's great to see you.
Hey, Michelle. How are you?
And you are the Director of Investigations and Research at Judicial Watch. How long have you been there now?
Almost 22 years.
That is amazing. That's about just a little bit older than my oldest daughter is. And what I love about you and Judicial Watch and Tom and everyone who just powers your organization is that you are in but not of DC. Right?
That's one way to put it. That really is. Yeah.
I wanted to queue up a video because there are so many people buzzing about a very awkward moment on Fox News, and awkward really is an understatement of what happened. I'm sort of vamping here while I line it up because on live streams we don't have producers. Here we go. This, let's see if I can pull it up and we can watch it with everybody. I'll get the sound on. Happened on Outnumbered with Harris Faulkner, Melissa Harris, Maria Harf, who's a Fox News contributor there. We're talking with their special guest, Outnumbered. What do they call him? He's like the only male or some sort of thing that they say. I don't know, the only male on the panel with their all-female panel. And he was giving some wrap-up remarks about liberal prosecutors. Here we go.
Yeah, look, the number one problem in almost all these cities is George Soros elected left-wing, anti-police, pro-criminal district attorneys who refuse to keep people locked up. Just yesterday, they put somebody back on the street who's wanted for 2 different murders in New York City. You cannot solve this problem, and both Harris and Biden have talked very proudly about what they call progressive district attorneys. Progressive district attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros's money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this. I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Your thoughts on that? And of course, I ask you because if a lot of people are just new to all of this, you have your own backstory of having reported on many Soros financial connections and then sort of met the banhammer at Fox News yourself. So this isn't anything new, is it, Chris?
No, it's not. And, look, what's interesting at this point is that as controversial as Mr. Soros is and his Open Society Foundation's organization, and their very aggressive advocacy and lobbying that they do and all the money that they spend, that's just a fact. And it's documented in a bunch of ways. We have a report. It's 28 pages long with 152 footnotes in 28 pages. So it's excruciatingly detailed, with documentation, primary source material, not open for discussion, their own records. So you can produce records and documents like that, detailing Soros and Open Society Foundation. What's more interesting to me is just the sort of the theater of what you just saw, where you have the former Speaker of the House discussing advocacy and campaign donations and efforts on the part of Open Society Foundation to elect certain prosecutors, again, a documented fact, and then the reaction in the studio. The story has stopped being the activities of Open Society Foundation and the story's now what's going on at Fox.
Right, exactly. And in the past, what's happened is, and this is sort of a template, is that groups like Media Matters, the SPLC, the ADL, the gatekeepers, the thought police, the speech police, pick a target, freeze it, Alinsky style, and decide that you are no longer allowed, even though you report things that have been reported, for example, and even in some mainstream outlets, the Los Angeles Times, the Wall Street Journal. There's any number of so-called mainstream outlets that have connected the dots on the, what is it now, $18 billion that's being dumped into the Open Society Foundation, all of the hedge fund profits that George Soros has poured into the constellation galaxy of NGOs that you and your organization have illuminated for many, many years now. And then it's decided that you have crossed some arbitrary, ever-moving line, and then you're deemed essentially a racist, a hater, a supremacist, an anti-Semite for attacking George Soros. There's never any response to the actual substance of what you're saying. It's merely that, well, you must be a hater and therefore you cannot be allowed on the airwaves. What's weird is that Newt Gingrich is like about as mainstream like an ex-politician as it gets, but no. Even Newt got the treatment. However, I don't know if you saw this, Harris Faulkner had a kind of faux apology yesterday in which she said that actually they're for free speech and they love Newt. So it's all okay.
Well, I guess he's also a paid contributor, so there may be some tension trying to explain why a Fox employee was treated that way. I mean, the irony is quite rich. It's about as crazy as, you know, the racism that you've experienced, where you're treated in a way that is just outrageously beyond the pale. Or, you know, the claim that, various people made against me, they completely neglect facts concerning my own family members and try to make claims that are just preposterous. Nonetheless, it doesn't slow them down or stop them. One of the things that's wonderful is that we rely upon documentation and facts at Judicial Watch. It's very disturbing.
Yes.
So, it's not just a matter of, look, we rely heavily on documentation and facts. And so we get records and we get government records. So it's not a matter of saying, well, gee, you cherry pick facts. No, we don't. We get government records and documents. We get the records and documents of the organizations themselves, those that are publicly available by law, and we produce those and we include them in reporting. And so you can disagree with our editorial position. You can say, no, we don't interpret it the way you do. We choose to believe something else. Okay, great, have at it. Go look at the documents we have. Look at the records and the archival material from U.S. government records, from the organizations themselves. You read the original documents, you make your decision. You explain it. And that's the beauty of the work that we do, is because we rely upon records and documents and not just whatever the opinion du jour is.
Exactly. And I want everybody to see that this is the report that you were talking about in 2018, 2 years ago. I mean, it's almost exactly 2 years ago, on the financial and staffing nexus between the Open Society Foundations and the U.S. government. And that's what people really seem to miss sometimes when we talk about Soros's billions. It's leverage by taxpayer funding. Can you talk about some of the key points in the report, and particularly the investigative trip that you had taken to Guatemala, in which you mined a lot of this new intel?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, if you look at all the different, you've referred to it as a constellation, but if you look at, and it's a good term to use, if you look at all the associated and affiliated organizations that the OSF or Open Society Foundation, they're collaborators, they're cooperators, they're affiliates, they're associates. If you look at all of them and you look at all the various government programs, a lot of them coming out of the State Department and other subordinate elements like the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which belongs to the State Department, but it's its own separate entity. And he rolled up all the taxpayer money. We're talking a couple of $100 million. This is not, nickel and dime stuff. A couple of $100 million of taxpayer dollars going to programs, activities, organizations that are Open Society Foundation, either straight up OSF, or their affiliates, subsidiaries, associates, other club members. And so ask yourself why, when Mr. Soros takes 18 billion with a B dollars of his own money and pours it into OSF, why are American taxpayers subsidizing their other activities to the tune of a couple of $100 million? Why are American taxpayers' dollars being used for that? Why are Open Society Foundation, and again, their affiliates, all the related groups, why do those employees get to sit on State Department panels and decide where that money goes? Which is another kind of, the Defense Department would call it a self-licking ice cream cone, right? How do they get to pick their own people that they're going to give money to? There's examples of that. And so, and then there's a rotating or revolving door of personnel. So Cecilia Munoz, who is the Obama domestic security or domestic policy council chief, had come from La Raza. She went into Obama administration, came out, and is now on the executive board of OSF. I mean, so the personnel rotate in and out of government and sort of lateral over to related positions. And then there's tons of money. And that's why the report is called what it's called. It's the nexus of personnel and financial relationships between Open Society Foundations and the U.S. government. And like I said, it's 28 pages with 152 footnotes. It's extremely detailed, and it's all sourced back to documents.
And I will put the link in all the live stream places that we have on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter, so that people can access that. Like you said, I mean, the report came out in the fall of 2018, but right. Unfortunately, we're like Cassandras, right? Yeah. We scream at the top of our lungs, hoping somebody will hear us, and then of course we get placed on the SPLC hate map, and then eventually more eyes are opened and people start listening. And there's any number of the Open Borders Inc. Related groups in particular that either get funded directly by Soros, indirectly, and then of course leveraged with public funds. And you mentioned National Council of La Raza, which of course is now Unidos US. They, right. That's part of their thing, is just to morph and change and transform. Whatever all of the heirs of Acorn are, all the acorns that fell from the acorn tree.
Yeah, I mean, they just changed the logo on their letterhead.
Yeah.
Same people, same address, same everything.
Yeah.
They just have a new name on their letterhead. That's all there is to it.
Yes. I mean, and there's so much money to track, because with regard to so-called immigrant rights on its own, that's $100 million alone that we're talking about directly from Soros. That gets, I mean, there's this multiplier effect with all of these things. And, this is the point that you were making when you were reporting on the caravans. And it's especially crucial as we head into the election to look at the State Department and pay attention in particular to that. Tell our viewers and listeners more about the Transition Integrity Project.
Yeah, so you touched on Guatemala. I'll hit that real fast and go to
yes, please.
Integrity Project. So I was down in Guatemala, and instead of sitting in a studio talking about it, we decided to go commit an act of journalism. And so we got on a plane, we flew to Guatemala, and we marched along with the caravanners. And so we went from the caravanners out on the road, marching along, all the way up to spending an hour and a half interviewing the president of Guatemala, Jimmy Morales at the time. And we talked to the defense minister, the intelligence chief, any number of other senior officials. And in talking with them, I can tell you that we'd say, well, who's behind this? What are you worried about? Where do you see the organizing and financing for this come from? Without hesitation, unanimously, from President Jimmy Morales to the intelligence chief to the defense secretary, they all said either Open Society Foundations or Soros. That's what they said. They're there. They're dealing with the flow of people. They're seeing the organizers. They're seeing, the water stops and the first aid stations and the busing of people up to the border. They're experiencing this firsthand. They're interviewing the people on the ground marching along. This is what the leadership of the country of Guatemala told me in person. Now, people may not like that. They may not be comfortable with that answer, but I'm telling you what they told me in person. So that's the Guatemala story. Transition Integrity Project, TIP, is the crisis we're facing in the next 45 days or whatever the count is till Election Day. And that is an organization, it's headed up by Podesta, which tells you a lot, John Podesta, and a handful of other sort of senior Democratic sort of leftist leadership operatives. And they have come up with a wargaming scenario for how they're going to approach the election. And no matter which, they ran 4 scenarios of how the election could play out. And all 4 scenarios end up with one result. And the one result is street violence and political impasse. So the 4 scenarios they ran, a squeaker Biden win, a squeaker Trump win, and whatever it was, their answer is street violence and political impasse. And it's a 22-page document, and they lay out in bullet point format what they're going to do. And they cleverly use projection, which the left loves doing, and it says how to prevent a disrupted election. And it's really a handbook for how to disrupt an election, right? That's what they do. And so it's clear. They have it out, and I encourage folks to go read it for themselves. And there's wild, reckless language in it. I mean, it reads like a sort of a college Marxist protest handbook.
Yeah, an Oberlin College.
They don't actually say vanguard of the proletariat, but they want to. That's what they're looking for.
Right. Last question for you. We got some encouraging noises from Bill Barr about draining the Justice Department swamp. How much progress has been made in cleaning up the State Department swamp that you have illuminated so trenchantly?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, what I've seen mostly is people that are Trump appointees being purged. I mean, that's what I've seen over and over and over again. And I will not rattle off names because that would only cause more retaliation and retribution. But I can tell you, I can easily think of a half dozen names of people who are Trump appointees at very senior levels, Schedule C and above type political appointees, who one way or another have been forced out, or their lives have been made so miserable that they said, look, it's just not worth it. They need to turn the page. Or innumerable false and misleading claims made against them to turn them, to sensationalize them, to controversialize them, to make it impossible for them to work. And so the opening line is, so you're actually a homicidal maniac, right? I mean, that's kind of and then try to go to work with somebody hanging that around your neck saying that you're a homicidal maniac,
Right. It's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be even more frustrating though for all of the enemies of a true America First agenda if we get at least another 4 years to make incremental progress.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I expect a very crazy election season, not even election night.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a bitterly fought, wildly disturbing election.
I think you're absolutely right. And I hope that the people in the establishment of the Republican Party are ready for it. That's what I always fear.
Yeah, if they sit around thinking it's going to be easy breezy, it's just no way. No way.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, Chris Farrell, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the work that you do at Judicial Watch. You're such a fearless spirit animal. And I recommend that everybody go to judicialwatch.org and follow you and follow your work. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. And I would love to make that a regular feature with Chris. He is so fantastic. And let me know in comments how many of you are fans of Judicial Watch, don't spend your money on the Republican Party. Okay, don't spend your money on Con Inc., establishment outlets, and organizations that are undermining your values. Put your money where it's going to have the most bang for the buck. And look, money is tight for so many people. On the other hand, there are many of you out there who are asking me, what can I do? What can I do? You've got full-time jobs and full lives, and you're raising kids, and you can't be out on the streets marching. You can't be an independent citizen journalist covering all of the mob violence. You're looking for something to do, some role to play. What you can do is support the people who are on the front lines. And Judicial Watch has been on the front lines for decades now. As you saw, Chris Farrell, research and investigative director there for 22 years. And long before Newt Gingrich got gently rapped on the knuckles by those Fox News women, Chris Farrell had to deal with essentially being deplatformed and punished for all of his excellent independent investigative journalism on Soros money and the money trail. So I highly recommend this report, which you can find on the Judicial Watch website. And I wanted to take a little bit of time with you all. And it is Friday. I know it's supposed to be more casual, but I think that this is an important moment in the aftermath of all of this Gingrich, Soros, Fox nonsense. A moment to capitalize and initiate people who have not followed closely enough Soros's influence on our country and around the world. And that is why I dedicated an entire chapter to Soros, the CEO of Open Borders, Inc., I called him, in my book of the same name. Let's go over some of the basics of the money. And we mentioned in our interview just now that 18 billion was transferred from Soros to the Open Society Foundations. And this is sort of his mega global umbrella for all of these thousands. I mean, it is literally thousands of nonprofit groups and satellite organizations and individuals and elected officials, like all of those prosecutors that I listed in my Twitter thread on Soros money just 2 days ago. So that's 18 billion that was transferred in 2017, 3 years ago. And as I mentioned, 100 million of that is earmarked specifically for so-called immigrant rights. And what that means is sabotaging our immigration laws at every level, defending illegal aliens, bringing lawsuits that go all the way up to the Supreme Court, challenging Trump's executive authority to set and enforce our immigration laws. And to fight for things like illegal alien amnesty, to wage war on Trump for killing the so-called temporary protected status amnesty program, which, by the way, I'll be talking about tomorrow on Newsmax in the morning, around 9 o'clock in the morning on Carl Higby's morning show on Newsmax. There was an anti-Trump speech policing initiative that Soros funded that was based on Southern Poverty Law Center reports. And of course, Southern Poverty Law Center itself is funded by Soros's Open Society Foundation. And that was a drop in the bucket for Soros. It was $10 million. The Open Society Foundation budget for 2018 was $1 billion, and spending on so-called migration issues, which would also include refugee resettlement, not only here, but around the world, 63.3 million. And Soros's equity investments in, quote, businesses that benefit migrants, which would include things like software app development so that illegal aliens and refugees can sort of check in as they're on their migration trails to trespass against our borders and other borders, $500 million, $500 million. Look, a lot of you who have followed sort of mainstream conservative investigative reporting over the years are familiar with La Raza, Casa de Maryland, the National Lawyers Guild. These are some of the groups that I would put at the top of the domestic Soros feeding chain, food chain. But there are so many others that are sort of little noticed, and they often operate under the guise of so-called media justice, right? It's not just social justice that all of the anarchists and mobs are hiding under, right, under disguise. But when they talk about media justice, they're talking about advertising boycotts. They're talking about their attempts to marginalize and deplatform anybody who is an effective America First advocate. And all of this rained down on me last fall during the Groyper Wars, where I defended many young men who were challenging the establishment in both the left and the right on college campuses, and going after many of these con Inc. tools like YAF, like TPUSA. And as soon as I was on my book tour, it actually predated the Groyper Wars, the first thing that these groups did was accuse me of being anti-Semitic because I went after Soros' money. And there was a great Bill O'Reilly clip from this morning that I wanted to call your attention to if you hadn't seen it. Because the guy, God bless him, spelled it out and, as they say, named the names, if you know what I mean. So let's cue up this great clip from Bill O'Reilly. Of course, both of us former Fox News colleagues, and all of you old timers will remember when I used to fill in for Bill O'Reilly as a guest anchor. Oh my gosh, was it 14, 15 years ago? Check this out.
Fox News yesterday with Newt Gingrich that got a lot of press. I'm not going to comment on the Fox News personnel there. I'm going to tell you the truth right now because Speaker Gingrich knows the truth. So George Soros has donated $17 million to county races to get far left progressives into the district attorney's office. That is a fact. All right, 17 million. Now, these are county races. So that's an enormous amount of money. So Gingrich is absolutely correct. Absolutely right. Now, none of the people on the panel seem to understand what Gingrich is talking about. I think that's a fair assessment. But the rule is if you invoke the name George Soros, then you're anti-Semitic because Soros is Jewish. He's a secular Jew. He's not a practicing Jew. Not that it matters. So if you say the name George Soros, you are anti-Semitic. That's what the ladies were responding. Oh, we don't need to mention George Soros. We don't want to be accused of being anti-Semitic. So why are they buying into that?
Why are they buying into that? Why are they buying into that? Don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. But that's about as explicit as you can get it. Okay? All of these strange, weird forces gathering around to protect George Soros. Gatekeepers on the air. Bubbleheads like this Marie Harf chiming in as if she runs Fox News to tell Newt Gingrich that he can't introduce George Soros into the discussion. Right? And what is especially hilarious to me is I woke up this morning to watch a bizarre non-apology apology from Harris Faulkner that did not make it better, okay? It just made things worse. How many of you saw this and scratched your heads? Okay, let me play this for you. It's worth going over, even if you already saw it, because, of course, we haven't gotten to chat about it together, and it's Friday, so we're going to let loose here. Check this out.
So we had a little incident on the show yesterday that was not smooth. And while I was leading that segment, we had interruptions, and I sat silently while all of that played out. Also, not ideal. Our guest, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who is beloved and needed to be allowed to speak with the openness and respect that the show is all about, was interrupted. Do we debate with fire here? Yes, but we must also give each other the space to express ourselves. As the only original member of the 6-year-old amazing daytime ride known as Outnumbered, I especially want to rock and roll with every voice and perspective at the table. We don't censor on this show, and that's why we're winning weekdays at noon.
Oh, okay. I would like to know what your all's response to that is. Okay. So they don't censor, but they did. There's a lot of interesting things because, of course, Chris Farrell is not allowed to put the flesh on the bones of Soros funding anymore. And he didn't get an apology, and nobody said that he was beloved. And, you know, as Chris said, of course, the difference is that Newt Gingrich is Newt Gingrich and is a paid Fox News contributor, whereas I guess, you know, since Chris Farrell was not, he's allowed to be treated the way he was, disgracefully, and had his free speech curtailed for unspoken reasons. The same thing happened to Victoria Tenzing and Joe DeGenova. Joe DeGenova, a couple of years ago, had also talked about Soros's meddling around the world and foreign governments. This led to a huge backlash. And then, of course, the same thing happened to yours truly. People always ask me, why aren't you on Fox News anymore? And now, I mean, I've been open about it, but I can just point to that extraordinary jewel of an exchange yesterday and say, well, that's why. I mean, many of you have eyes wide open. You know that this has been going on. You know that Fox has been lurching and veering to the left. You know that there are so many forces in the so-called conservative media that conspire against people who are serious about an America First agenda. And that leads me to a small diversion for a moment. Last night, and how many of you tuned into this or heard about this, let me know. Last night, there was a special event that was hosted by Young America's Foundation and the Capital Research Center. It was a live stream on YouTube. I think several tens of thousands of people watched it live last night. More people watched it on the live stream of America First host Nick Fuentes than actually watched it on the YAF YouTube page, which tells you something, tells you a lot. But the topic of this special convention, which featured Adam Carolla, the comedian who came out of the closet as a conservative recently, is very beloved by many of these conning figures. Dave Rubin, who is some gay liberal guy who now passes for some so-called classical liberal and is accepted in the cognoscenti of Con Inc., as well as Dennis Prager and Ben Shapiro, all got together to decry cancel culture. Okay? Now, if you are awakened, if you've been paying attention, then you know why this is so richly ironic and hypocritical. And that is because many of these organizations, particularly those two that co-sponsored this CancelCon, YAF and the Capital Research Center, are responsible for attempting to cancel me and many, many young people whose only crime was to fathom the disingenuousness of conservatism, Inc. Okay, and that's what I'm going to say about that. But so last night there was this event, and these people tried to get away with gaslighting. How many of you know what I mean by that? Google it if you need to. But these people who decry gaslighting are the biggest perpetuators and promoters of gaslighting themselves. And I know it can be bewildering, especially I know I've got a lot of people who are joining me on Facebook, people who are not as attuned to what's going on in these battles on the right. But there are pretenders, and then there are the real deal. And it's up to you to figure out who's telling you the truth and who's lying. And moments like yesterday are very revelatory. Now, for those of us who've lived through these battles and survived attempts to cancel us, it's not revelatory, it's confirmatory, right? It's just yet more evidence that these people have no shame, no scruples, no conscience. And for some reason, their business model continues to work because people just switch off some sort of light in their head that prevents them from saying. So yeah, I mean, I'll just give you a little taste of. Oh, wait a minute. Did I play? No, I haven't played it yet, right? Tell me, I'm like, I have so many things. I'm going a mile a minute in my head. Just give me a why or a no. I have not played Harris's apology yet. Have I? Did I do that? Why or no? So I've got it lined up, but I can't remember. I did? No, wait. Yeah, right? I didn't play did I play the apology? Okay. Some of you have seen it. Oh, no, I did. Yeah, I just responded to it. Oh, my gosh, I need another cup of coffee. Yeah. I did play it, right? Because I was making faces. Right? I was making faces. Yeah. So that's that. And really what that's all about, again, just to name names, come on. Paul Ryan is on the board of directors of Fox News, News Corp now. Right? And Paul Ryan is one of the biggest open borders, globalist sellouts in all of American politics. Is that an understatement? No, right? I'm not being hyperbolic. Okay. And since retiring from public life to spend more time with his family, he's been very busy forming nonprofits that profit off of all of his campaign donations and leftover treasure from all of that, and capitalizing on all of his corporate connections and back scratching from being a beltway crap weasel, right? This is how it works there. And he is an enemy of America First. He's an enemy of American populism. And he is an enabler of the exact kind of anarcho-tyranny and Soros world that we are trying to combat. That's the answer to why would those women tell Newt Gingrich not to talk about George Soros, right? That's why. Because when Paul Ryan was in office, conspiring with open borders, amnesty promoters and pushers, when he was conspiring with Silicon Valley and tech companies to import as many foreign workers at cheap wages into this country, putting American workers last, right? He was conspiring with the same forces now that are propping up all of the mobs on the streets and all of the groups that Chris Farrell talked about that we really need to focus on now. These groups that are preparing for agitation every single day now till election day to foment an American so-called color revolution. How many of you have seen Darren Beattie? He did a terrific segment on Tucker Carlson, the last safe space at Fox News, exactly about this, right? These deep state bureaucrats, the former ethics czar in the Obama White House, Norm Eisen, who have prepared the literal playbook for fomenting this agitation. Well, he's going to be back on Malkin Live on Monday to talk about that and more. Your new must visit website aggregator for news every morning has to be, come on, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Let's see how informed you all are. It's Revolver News, right? Goodbye, Drudge. Hello, Revolver News. Now, I know that there are a lot of alternatives out there that are competing, but this is the best and only one that you need to know. Revolver.news. That's right, Tony Green. Make sure that it's on your bookmarks on your non-Google Chrome web browser. Am I right? Yes. Make sure that you're using DuckDuckGo or an alternative like that. Yes, Revolver. You got it right. Reality, not fiction. That's right. Everyone who's on the live stream in the chats on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, make sure you are reading Revolver News. And I was so happy because, not because I got drudged, but because I got revolved today. They linked to my recent interview with Gavin McInnes on Sovereign Nation, and also a tweet that I just put out about an outrageous treatment of a patriotic passenger on Spirit Airlines. I know a lot of you don't use Twitter or have been kicked off or shadow banned or just disgusted with it. So I'm going to play that for you right now because it leads into the topic of Sovereign Nation this weekend. Anyway, this got revolved. So they linked to my tweet about this. Check this out.
What's wrong with my mask?
I've literally the CDC.
Really?
Really.
Show me those rules. Show me those rules.
That's why I
Show me those rules.
I don't have to show you the rules.
Well, I don't have to wear the mask that you gave me. I'm wearing the mask that I have.
Well, then,
I've been on 20 flights. Okay.
well,
I've literally been on 20 flights with this same exact mask.
I don't.
All right. Well, I'm done talking.
Well, so am I.
Okay.
You'll have the authorities waiting for you when we land.
Okay. Sounds good.
I've
literally.
So I'm going to freeze it right there on the actual mask because I want to point out a couple of things. Okay. So I looked at the Spirit policy on masks and they require your chin to be covered. Chin is covered. They require a multi-layer of fabric, and this looks like it has 2 layers, as most of these cloth bandanas do, sewn together. It covers his nose. It covers his mouth. It complies with Spirit Airlines mask policy. Now, the little fascist sky waiter, right? This sky waiter on Spirit Airlines who decided unilaterally that this compliant mask did not comply. The only issue that guy had with it, as you can tell from his attitude, is not the fabric or manufacturing of this mask. It's the fact that it's an American flag. And Mr. Spirit Airlines didn't like that. So the authorities are going to be waiting for this patriotic passenger when he gets off the plane. Unacceptable. So if you are on Twitter, make sure that you tweet at Spirit Airlines and demand an apology on behalf of this passenger. Yes, I see so many comments. I'm sick of the masks, sick of the masks. That's right. And some troll says, just wear a damn mask. F you. Screw you. It is unscientific, it is unlawful, and it is un-American. And that is the topic of this weekend's Sovereign Nation on Newsmax. I have great guests. Anthony Sabatini is a state house representative in Florida. He has 15 different legal challenges to local, county mask ordinances and other COVID-related public orders. He'll talk to me about the status of those and react to the great ruling by a federal judge in Pennsylvania rescinding the mask mandate of the Democrat governor there, Tom Wolf, as well as other violations of both the First and 14th Amendment. And then I'll have my friends from Colorado, Randy Corcoran, lawyer, Republican National Committee man, and talk show host, as well as Patrick Neville, my friend who is the House Minority GOP leader, as well as my co-plaintiff in a lawsuit that we have filed challenging the mask mandate and other public health orders and executive orders, almost 200 of them now in Colorado. By the tech billionaire Jared Polis. He's part of the quartet of radical left tech billionaires that have tried to take over our state. If any of you paid attention to a great documentary that I did several years ago called Rocky Mountain Heist, you know all about it. That's the playbook that is being used in every single state. It relates to the entire Soros universe because, of course, what they've done is concentrate on local and state races, not just prosecutors, right? Secretaries of state across the country, mayors, sheriffs, the whole thing. And this is the thing about the left. They know what they're doing. They're organized. They're focused. They don't throw each other under the bus. You don't see them stabbing each other in the back, okay? And that's the problem with so much of Conservatism Inc. That's how you end up with Newt Gingrich on a supposedly conservative news channel getting his knuckles rapped for merely mentioning the name of the mastermind of leftist agitation in America and around the world, right? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Okay. I have got a couple of minutes to take questions from you all. Thank you to so many of you who tuned into this live stream. I know even my mom was saying, "Oh, where's your Malkin live? I've just been busy. I've been busy." But I was happy to bring Chris Farrell on earlier in the show. Monday, I'm going to have Darren Beatty, and Tuesday, I'm scheduled to interview a former Project Veritas undercover journalist who has been harassed by the doxers, the bullies, and so many of these same smear merchants who are trying to undermine the great work that Project Veritas does. Of course, that's incredibly important what they're doing, especially with regard to election and voter fraud. James O'Keefe and his team have been instrumental over the last couple of election cycles and being the watchdogs that nobody else wanted to be. And in a couple of weeks, I'll have James O'Keefe on Sovereign Nation to talk about a lot of their recent and upcoming work. And that is a program that you will not see anywhere else. You know, yesterday I talked about the Fox News blacklist, hashtag Fox News blacklist. Yes, it exists. You're not supposed to talk about it. But those of you who have been loyal, and I appreciate every single one of you, viewers of Malkin Live, know that I've had several guests on who've talked about being blacklisted by Fox, including Laura Loomer and including Joel Gilbert, the documentary filmmaker behind the Trayvon hoax, which, by the way, I think is over. I think I had an email from him the other day, has now surpassed 200,000 viewers, despite almost no press coverage, no mainstream press coverage, including Fox. And I retweeted that clip from one of our recent interviews where he said he had been booked 3 times to be on Fox shows. And 3 times there was some excuse about why he could not appear. He also told me something very fascinating, which was that Roger Ailes himself, when he was alive, complimented him on a documentary that he did exposing Obama called Dreams of My Father. And Roger Ailes told him that it was an excellent project, but that it would never see air on Fox News. And that's when Roger was alive. What does that tell you? Interesting. Vicki Manning on Facebook says, Fox apologized to Newt Gingrich and Harris apologized on air yesterday. Yeah, well, we already went over that. You can rewind the live stream and you'll see that my analysis is that the apology was a faux apology. And believe me, I've had such faux apologies delivered to me from other Fox News personalities. Okay? A little bit of ancient history for you, but of course, I mentioned that I used to guest host for Bill O'Reilly, who did a great response to all of that fiasco with Gingrich and Fox News. If you missed it, if you're just tuning in, just rewind and you can watch all that. But many of you will remember that Geraldo Rivera, who is still on Fox News, okay? Just contemplate this for a second, all right? Marie Harf, Donna Brazile, the Hillary debate leaker, DNC swamp creature, Juan Williams, these types of people are all still on Fox News. I am not on Fox News. Okay, you can find me on Newsmax, okay? Hashtag switch to Newsmax. But all those people are on Fox News. However, I was threatened by Geraldo Rivera, who told a Boston Globe reporter that he would spit on me the next time he saw me in New York because I advocate for strict enforcement of our immigration laws against illegal alien criminals and others who are breaking the plethora of laws against employing illegal aliens, sheltering them, aiding them in getting driver's licenses and bank accounts and in-state tuition and illegally renting. Okay? So he said that I was basically said I was an un-American snitch who should be spat upon. Okay? And I got a faux apology too. And it went like this. It was very similar to Harris Faulkner's. Well, yeah, I apologize if I offended you. That's the first thing, right? That is the first sign of a crap weaselly faux apology. I apologize if I offended you, right? Because then it's not like they did anything wrong. It's that you were offended by it. And by the way, I was not offended by it, all right? I was just disgusted by his disgusting being, right? I apologize if I offended you. And in any case, I'm not that type of person, right? I'm not the type of person that said the thing that I'm apologizing for not saying. Right? Okay. Okay. So this reminds me of this character in Shrek. And this is the mom in me. I can't remember who it was, but like there was this character that was like, I'll never not do the not thing. Okay, if you're a parent and you know what I'm talking about, tell me the name of that character. But like he'd always put like every other negative. I'm not do that. Even though they're like, okay, you did do that, right? And so when Faulkner Harris in her apology to Newt Gingrich says, well, we're for free speech and we wouldn't censor people. Well, you did, okay? And in the interest of full disclosure and transparency, right, and actually what good journalism would be is what motivated Melissa Harris to interject and wag her finger while Harris Faulkner was supposed to be the one in command there, right? She was the hostess of it all. And as she reminded us in her faux apology, she's the only original member of Outnumbered Left, and she's a veteran. She's been there for 6 years. And yet she allowed this other woman to hijack her and tell her what could be said by her own guests on her own show that she has helmed for 6 years. What is it about Melissa Harris? What connection, what financial motive, what editorial oversight does she have that other people don't, right? Marie Harf, we get it. We know you're some Obama State Department tool, all right? You're a baby. Yeah, we caved, right? She chimes in afterwards, right? She was not the lead instigator there in keeping the gate, right? Keeper of the gate. No, she just kind of trailed along like a little puppy dog after Melissa Harris. I agree too. We don't need to bring George Soros into this, right? But what about this Melissa Francis, right? Now I'm seeing things that I have not had a chance to look into about her husband and his possible connection to Soros. So maybe she's not like directly related, but maybe she's Soros adjacent, I guess. So her husband is a guy named Ray Thorne, apparently. Let's see. Ray Thorne. Ray Thorne. What kind of name is that? Oh, here's something. Let's just take a look at this now. Okay. We'll do sort of live in-person investigative reporting together. We'll crowdsource it. I'm going to put this in the link for in comments for everybody so you can see that as well. But let me pull it up. Yeah, why did I have that still on there? I moved on. Sorry about that. It's because I don't have my own producer. All right, I took the mask guy off there. All right, let's look at this. So Melissa Francis, who told Newt Gingrich that he couldn't bring up George Soros, is married to this guy. Let's see if we can find anything out here. And I'm sure I'll be accused of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, because I'm finding out why Melissa Francis needed to stop an on-air guest from mentioning the name George Soros. George Soros. Okay, Ray Thorne, Melissa Francis's husband. They've been married since 1997. And let's see. Oh, fun facts. Melissa Francis was a child actress known as Missy Francis, who played Cassandra Cooper Ingalls on 2 seasons of Little House on the Prairie. I actually loved Little House on the Prairie. Well, I love the book series, not so much the TV series. Let's see. She graduated from Harvard in 1995 and became a journalist. She worked for CNBC, blah, 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 blah. Thorne, there's Thorne. Ray Thorne, managing director at 2 Sigma Ventures. So he's worked for all of these financial giants, JP Morgan Chase, Fox Payne. So if there's any intersection at all, obviously it's with Soros's hedge fund ventures, potentially. Don't quote me on anything yet. We're going through this live. 2 Sigma Ventures, private investment, buyouts, acquisitions, leveraging. Let's see. She's got 3 nice kids. She lives in a Carnegie Hill condo. That means nothing to me. I don't know. Some overpriced, tiny little space somewhere. Oh, so she's wealthy enough that she shows off her living space and it becomes a news story. And she described the decor in her home as New York, European Swedish influence. New York, European, Swedish influence. Wow. How many of you have, oh, somebody liked my Marie Harf imitation. Thank you very much. You know, I think I'm often sort of underappreciated for my imitations, which I've been doing for a long, long time. And if you were fortunate or unfortunate enough to be my family member, you know that I'm very keen on doing imitations. So I'm glad somebody liked my Marie Harf. Okay. Anyway, so let's see. Melissa Harf owns a condo in somewhere called Carnegie Hill, decor of which she describes as New York, European, Swedish influence. La-dee-da. All right, come on. Tell us more about Ray Thorne. One reason Francis married Ray was because he doesn't think her feet are ugly. Oh, that's really, hard-hitting journalism right there. They had a daughter through surrogacy. He's involved in his children's lives. Well, give him a frickin' Nobel Peace Prize. That's it. That's lame. Let's see what else we can find out about 2 Sigma Ventures. And by the way, if anyone's already done some of this, let me know and I'm certainly happy to. Wow, isn't that interesting? Let's see. Wow. I'm looking at an article on hedge fund managers. Let's see what this says. So Two Sigma is a massive hedge fund. It's on the list of the, the wealthiest hedge fund managers in America. This is about 5 years old. Each of the co-founders of Two Sigma are worth a couple $1 billion. Of course, that dwarfs George Soros. But clearly, again, these would be circles that would be at least adjacent, if not intersecting at some point. And in any case, what this Melissa Francis revealed in her zeal to shut down any talk of George Soros is she is a friendly to the cause. And no, there are a lot of those. I mean, she masquerades as a neutral journalist, right? At least Marie Harf. We all know where you're coming from, Marie. Right? At least she's transparent about it. Or Donna Brazil, or Juan Williams, or any of these clowns. I don't watch it anymore, so I don't know who the new, fresh young things are that are the replacements, right? They always have some fresh batch of them. One of them, that twit Kathy Aru, who used to be on Tucker Carlson, of course, is now a plaintiff in one of these, to me, just shady, ridiculous lawsuits, politically timed, right? Well, that's what you get. That's the thanks you get for welcoming into your big tent of Fox News contributors nutbags like this Kathy Aru. And she was really like the lowest of the low. You know who all I'm talking about? I think I debated this. I mean, debate isn't even the right word. I mean, such low IQ, the exchanges with these people. It's like embarrassing. I mean, it was embarrassing, right? First of all, you couldn't even finish a sentence anyway, right? You have 3 minutes to have a so-called debate on some topic. And then there's people yammering at the top of their lungs, and it causes you to yammer at the top of your lungs. I mean, it was ridiculous. And like, I never pretended about anything. These people genuinely annoyed, aggravated, and frustrated me. And you could tell, right? That was not an act. But for most of these people, like Kathy Aru or Marie Harf or Donna Brazil, it's all theater, right? Most useful adjective of the year, performative, right? I always used to use the phrase kabuki theater to describe all of this, this shadow puppetry or whatever. But performative is it really just tells you everything you need to know, right? But for me, it wasn't. And that's why I never fit in all the way, right? And it's weird that I lasted as long as I did. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And like in terms of honing your radar about who is true and authentic and who is just an actor, right? I'm really bad at poker. And, when I compete now, many of you know that I do pickleball, right? So I compete in pickleball, and I can't be quiet. Like, I'm the Monica Seles of pickleball, right? If I miss a third shot drop, oh my God, I can't, right? And it takes everything not to curse, right? Yes, sometimes I have a little bit of a potty mouth when I'm competing because I'm very competitive. And I'm having fun when I'm doing it, but the thing is, I'm hardest on myself. But anyway, like, what I'm feeling, right? That's why I have, people will always say, oh, you have crazy eyes, you make the weirdest faces. Well, at least I can move my face. I always joke about that, right? And so when you have these plasticky people who can't move their faces and they're saying things that are outrageous, but like, they could just be reciting the alphabet. There's no difference. There's no distinction. They don't care about what they're saying. Right? This is why more people are actually abandoning Fox, because they're realizing it's performative, it's theater. Look, if that's what you like, if you like get home at the end of a long day and you just want to be entertained by some of these people, great. But let's not pretend anymore, right? A lot of people don't want to pretend anymore. If you don't want to pretend, switch to Newsmax. All right, my show is on tomorrow, 7 p.m., re-airs 11 a.m. I will continue to do these Malkin Live segments. Monday, Tuesday are all lined up already. Darren Beatty on Monday, Cassandra Spencer, who's the Project Veritas whistleblower, Always be sure to tweet me if you've got recommendations. I know there's so many people I want to get to and repeat guests I want to have on. But between Malkin Live and between the Newsmax show, I hope that you're getting, some satisfaction in programming that you like really, really cannot find anywhere else. So I hope you all have a great weekend. I will catch up with you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.